I'm Anne, I'm 91, and I'm not done yet. So welcome to an adventure. How many of you have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro? Well, then you're in for some enlightenment. I hold the world record as the oldest woman and the oldest person to climb this huge mountain in Africa. It's the highest mountain in Africa. I climbed it twice. That's no mean feat for a great-grandmother and a person who's not a professional climber. But more important is the fact that I did do it for my cause. My foundation does business as creating exciting futures. And I did that to benefit it and to give underserved kids a hand up. Climbing the highest mountain in Africa had been on my bucket list for a very long time. But when I first heard of the mountain, it was when I read Snows of Kilimanjaro in high school. And I thought it was exciting, and I thought that was wonderful, but it didn't have any relevance to me at all. I didn't see how I related to that in the least. Then a few years later, my nephew and niece said, we're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So I said, let me go with you. My astonishment, they said, why not? So we began to prepare for it. I'm a member of CEO Space International, some of you may know that organization, and one of the members there said that he's actually someone who'd climbed to each of the 7 summits. He's the oldest person to have done that. That means each of the tallest mountains on each continent. And he said he's going to take a group up Kilimanjaro. So I thought, well, how wonderful. He would know the problems of an older person. So I signed up with it. And I right away reached my cousins and my niece and my nephew and said, let's go. They couldn't make it fit their schedule. But I decided I am going. And I said, I am going by the time I am 85 years old. The day after I printed my brochure for the climb, the leader said, we got to put it off a year. Some people that committed aren't going to come. I wasn't going to let that stop me. So I just kept on getting ready and preparing and deciding that I would do it. And we did do it then, a year later. I got excited then because I thought, well, I won't just be an older woman doing the climb. Now I will be the oldest woman doing the climb. And so this has got more publicity value for my organization, and felt that'd be wonderful. I'd done quite a lot of climbing. I'm not a professional at all, but as you can see, I climbed Ayers Rock back when you couldn't climb it. I climbed the Great Pyramid in Egypt. I think you can't do that anymore either, but I did do it. I climbed the pyramid in Mexico City, climbed lots of mountains in various places in the world. I also climbed Pikes Peak and 414ers. And I did that when I was 76. I had wanted to do that when I was in my 20s. So sometimes things take a long time to happen. So I'd like to take you now with me on our climb up the highest freestanding mountain in the world. And I'll tell you about some teens that we've helped with my organization. And finally, I'll share a few secrets with you in reaching your own summit and living the exciting, productive life that you want to live. When we went to, it's over here, honey, right down here. When we went to Tanzania, we decided we'd spend a few days beforehand to get to know the country a little, learn a little, also to get acclimated to the higher altitude. One of the exciting things we did was visit a Maasai village. Now you remember that the Maasai are the cattle herders who drink the blood of their own cattle. And they're also very private. No ordinary tourists can just get here to see them. So we went to visit this village. It was interesting to me. They had, the way they live, they have a hut for the chief, and then the chief can have 7 wives, and each one of those has her own little hut surrounding it. It's an interesting lifestyle, and they've talked to us quite freely, and I enjoyed meeting them. As you see, the women make a lot of jewelry, and some of them grabbed me and put a necklace on my neck, and they lined us up and got a picture. I found it a very, very interesting experience. I was really glad that I did get that in. Then, of course, you can't be in Tanzania without doing a safari. We went to the Serengeti Plains and saw a whole lot of people. And we were really fortunate. We had an absolutely terrific guide, the kind of guide that's adept at spotting animals hidden in those hidden parts of the jungle. As you can see, we saw a number of different kinds, and that doesn't begin to show you all that we saw. But it was an interesting experience. What I remember very vividly, there was a leopard, and some people saw him. He'd stretch out on a limb and look at the people, and it was pretty dramatic, just seeing this leopard concealed in the bushes, but hidden there watching us. But one of the things I remember most was the lion. We were way out in the far distant places where you wouldn't see many cars, I would think, normally, but this lazy old lion just came over and plopped down to the side of the road. And everybody, the cars stopped for miles, but you wouldn't even think it'd be there to watch this lion. He sat there, and once in a while he'd lift his head and kind of look around lazily, and I didn't know if we were ever going to get moved, but eventually he got up and ambled off, and the cars dissipated, and we went on with what we were doing. Let me tell you a little bit about the mountain itself. Mount Kilimanjaro is 19,341 feet high. That's almost a mile higher than the highest mountain in Colorado. It's over there on the, you see it on the map, it's just south of the equator, and it's close to the eastern coast of Africa. An interesting place to go. There are a number of routes to go, and these usually take from 5 to 11 days to do. We chose the Rongai route, which is the only one approaching the mountain from the north. The height of the mountain doesn't tell you anything about the miles you covered. That Rongai route, it's only, what as I told you, 19,341 feet, which is less than 4 miles. But by the time we got up the Rongai route to the summit, we'd covered 44 miles. We came out the Moringa route, and that was 45 miles. So it was quite a journey. And for me, people were doing a documentary of my climb, since I was going to be the oldest person at this point. And so I had to pose by every single sign there was, so I got a lot of extra walking in. And also, there were lots of switchbacks in mountains that, in trails that curved around a lot. Not only switchbacks, was just generally curving trails. So we covered a lot of miles when we did that mountain. Kilimanjaro has a number of different ecological zones. You can see that there are 5 of them, and it's like you're going from the equator to Antarctica in just a few hours. They were interesting, every one of them was different. The alpine zone had almost no flowers. That was kind of disappointing. And the animals were mainly in the rainforest. And there is still the eternal ice at the top, but they say that it's not going to last much longer. Maybe 20 years it'll have melted. But it was up there, not in where you walked usually, but way up high. I was going to tell you about this one. The food in the mountain was generally pretty good. They had the tent where you see we're very cold. There's nothing to keep us warm, and we're all wearing a lot of heavy clothes, and we had hearty food. I liked a lot of it. The one Tanzanian dish reminded me of polenta. We had lots and lots of fresh fruit, and I loved that. And we were told by the first, the leader on the first expedition, that we had to have 5,000 calories a day on that mountain, and that made me very, very happy, because a person that loves food as much as I do, it was really a wonderful thing. We did get plenty to eat. This is not something you'd want to do unless you can stand or enjoy roughing it a bit. We were many days on the mountain without showers. In the tents that you see, they were very, very simple, no heating or cooling or anything like that. And we brought just maybe a basin of water. Maybe it was hot water to wash up a little bit. Wasn't a great feeling. But if you liked it, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. The other part of it was you had sleeping bags on just a thin pad, and again, some people wouldn't care for that, but I can rough that very well, so that part of it did well with me. We were definitely a group event. We had 8 people, 3 women and 5 men, and they ranged in age from 28 to 89. We also were supported by 31 guides and porters and the cook and all that kind of thing. It really was interesting that we had our own group. It gave us a little advantage because we did have a porta potty. We shared the tent sites with other groups, and sometimes the facilities were just a hole in the ground, so we had our own porta potty and felt that we were pretty lucky about that. One good thing about it was I told them that I wasn't setting any speed records, only an age record. So people could go off with their own guides whenever they wanted to, and we weren't all, sit to the same pace, because I knew I couldn't keep up with the 28-year-old. But we did it that way, and we all enjoyed it. Most days we got up at 6 o'clock, 6:30 they called us. 8 o'clock. The 5 o'clock club was behind them, but it was early for most of us. And we were given breakfast. We got packed up and we were given breakfast, and then we started off. And I was really amazed by the porters. They would pack up the camp after we left. They would race past us on the trail with all the goods on their back, because they were carrying everything but our backpacks. They were carrying the cook tent and the dining tent and the water and the food and all of the other things. And porta potty too somehow got carried along. But anyway, they'd race past us with it mostly on their backs, but sometimes you'd also see them carrying it on their heads. And I was just truly impressed with them. We couldn't have done it without them. I just felt I couldn't have done any of this stuff without the group that we had. Most of the animals are in the forest zone, and we didn't see many, but we did see the white-collared raven, which was impressive, and also the very flamboyant colobus monkeys were there. The thing that I remember most vividly about that climb was the stars. The higher you got, the brighter they seemed. Here were these brilliant stars down around your ears, and you felt as if you could almost reach up and touch them. I really loved that. And the other exciting thing was we saw the Southern Cross, which you can't see at all from this hemisphere. So it was another exciting part of the mountain, even though the trekking itself got a little tiring. As we climbed higher, I began to suffer excruciating pain in my right lower chest. I just could hardly breathe. I had stepped on a mat on a wet step during the safari at a tenting camp. It hadn't rained but once in 2 months, but there it was. And the mat went out from under me, and there was no rail, and I fell very heavily. And as I went on and on, I began to feel worse and worse. And on the 5th day, the pain became just excruciating. And so I had trouble taking deep breaths. I couldn't lie on my right side, or I couldn't lie on my left side, and I couldn't even lie on my back. I just propped myself up with a roll of gear and just was there. But I knew that I had to keep my oxygen up, and I kept trying to breathe. Then I began to have really silly thoughts, and I heard about the helicopter rescues off the mountain, and the people being trundled off on wheelbarrows, all those kinds of things. I didn't want that to happen. I'm doing this for a cause, and people are counting on me. So I'm there continuing to try to breathe and just hurting like heck, but I managed to keep on going. I did know if I didn't keep my oxygen level up, they would send me off the mountain. And they tested us every day. So you're in the middle of the night, after I'd done all these deep breaths, nearly killing myself, I got the guy in and he tested me, and I tested high enough that I was able to go on. And so after that, my course remained fixed. A little side note, the first time I climbed Kilimanjaro, I nearly froze to death. I'd read the list of gear, but I didn't understand it, obviously. I had all the number of layers they required, but I was just freezing. So I felt like a chunk of ice inside out, and it began to shiver just really uncontrollably from the inside out. So my nephew had climbed with me, and the guide took me in a kind of a human sandwich and held me for a while until I was warmed up a little bit, and we scrounged some clothing from the other people in the group. One woman had ski pants in her pack she wasn't using. I got those, and a guide got me another jacket, and all together I managed to get up there. But this time I was prepared. I had a Patagonial face scarf, I had underalls, I had a down vest and jacket and with a hood. I had gloves with liners, and I had liners and wool socks. And I didn't get cold at all, even though I was out for hours and hours, and the temperature did drop to 10 below zero during the time that we were at the highest elevation. So that was one thing that was markedly better the second time. At 3:14 on July 18th, I became the oldest woman and the oldest person to summit Mount Kilimanjaro. You see me at Uhuru Peak there with the film crew. There's the producer director, the audio man, and the photographer. And there will be a documentary coming out in July, which I think that you'll find interesting. This time I felt very exultant. I've done it. The first time I was so tired I just hardly reacted at all, but this time I did. But again, I couldn't have done it without my wonderful team. I did it all on my own in the fact that I never used any oxygen. I wouldn't take any pain pills. I also didn't, if I fell down, I picked myself up. I didn't let anyone else help me. But still, you needed the group around you for support, and I had them, and it was great. Okay. Wherever I go, I like to get involved in volunteer work. As I said, kids mean an awful lot to me. And so I got to visit the school run by the hotel in which we stayed. The school gave them uniforms, they gave them a hot meal a day, and they gave them classes, which most of them would not have been able to have in other situations. And I got to interact with them. They tried their little bit of English on me and all this, and so it was great fun for me. Tanzania has lots of orphanages and schools, and I visited as many of them as I could and interacted whenever I could, because my feeling is that when you're young, if you get exposed to different people in different situations, you're much more comfortable in life. And so I really enjoyed my visits with those kids. When I came back the first time after my first trip, only 3 people met me at the airport. Here I am, the oldest woman at that point to climb that mountain, and it was disappointing. But this time, I had a group of 20 people that met me at the airport, around 20. They had banners and they were shouting and cheering and singing and carrying on. So it was a much better feeling about it. And you see there, some of the media were there, and I was featured on quite a number of media outlets after that. The other pictures are some of the kids that have received scholarships through my organization. And I'm just happy that their lives are better because of what we've been able to do for them. People ask me how I do it. I mean, you don't, obviously, if I'm the oldest, you don't have very many people going up that mountain with the age that I have. So the second time, I had, for the last 8 months of the time, I had a marvelous trainer, Scott Marsh. He has a mind and body strengthening studio in Tempe, and he worked me hard. You see a lot of different kinds of machines. He told me things I could do at home on my own training and all that sort of thing. And it really was a very, very helpful thing to happen. And fortunately, he wasn't of the no pain, no gain school. So he would work me up to something so I wouldn't get injured, and yet I'd get to where I needed to be. I did my own training in addition. My little training buddy accompanied me on my hikes, which I hiked and I climbed every day. He always went with me. And I swam most of the time, and he'd come and sit by the pool and watch me. He was such a lot of fun and help in my training. He's left me now, but I do take comfort in the fact that he's waiting for me at the Rainbow Bridge. I still have to keep training. It's just not as much fun anymore, but I can't let it go because something else is coming up. And another thing that we do to keep me fit and keep the organization in front of people are monthly local hikes. And people from different groups come and hike with me. We've done quite a number of the hikes around the Phoenix area. We've Shaw Butte and the Tom Sum and a lot of others, and they're great fun. And if that's something that you would like, look at us on creatingexcitingfutures.org and also on Creating Exciting Futures, the Facebook, and you can sign up and come with us. It's really great fun. People do this under great handicap. I met this man. He's a quadruple congenital amputee. That means he was born with 4 stumps instead of the usual arms and legs. He made it up that mountain.
30 minutes.
Thank you. He made it up that mountain, and he had to have adaptation. He had stump pads over his stumps, and he made it all the way up there. He told me that his family had never let him think he was handicapped. They simply said to him, "You have challenges to overcome." And he found ways to face them, and he did it. And I was just so impressed by him. Blind people have climbed it. A person in a wheelchair made it most of the way up. I saw a film with someone who had cerebral palsy. With very intense determination, he got himself up to the top. So what I'm saying is, if you're focused and determined, the sky is the limit. you might be thinking, oh, it's easy for Anne. She's fit and healthy. What you don't know about me is that I am a cancer victor, and that's beyond a survivor of some 35 years. I battle osteoporosis. I've had a replacement shoulder. I have a touch of arthritis. I have an ankle that was so badly shattered they had to put in 13 pieces of metal to make it heal. So once again, I'm saying you don't have to be perfect to dream big and make it happen. What's next for me? I'm leaving a blank there because I'm doing a hike in June, the Inca Trail, and that's the space to put it in when we get back. I will be hiking the Inca Trail on my 92nd birthday, which is the 11th of June of this year. We'll be climbing up to the ruins of Machu Picchu. The Inca Trail itself is one of the 5 most noted trails in the world, and the Machu Picchu is considered one of the 7 modern wonders of the world. So I'm excited about going. Again, it's to get attention and money for my cause to help these kids. So if you go to, K2 Adventures is taking us, and they're letting us do some volunteer work on the side. And if you go to their website, you'll see a lot about Peru. But if you go to mine, creatingexcitingfutures.org, you'll see the itinerary, and you'll see, we'll be posting things as they happen. So you get a chance to see that if you want to. So I'm just saying, be prepared to follow it. I'm giving you the invitation. Do a vicarious climb with us. We'll be putting out as much as we can from that country. And it'll be coming there, and you'll be seeing what's going on. And I hope some of my former students will also be posting things during the time that's going on. As I said to you, my chief purpose in life is to empower underserved kids. And I feel that I'm uniquely qualified to understand their problems and see what they need. I myself was born at the beginning of the Great Depression. I was the oldest of 10 children in the first family. We were homeless for times. We traveled in a truck with a canvas stretched over iron ribs, sort of like a prairie schooner. We spent a much longer time in a tent on the bare ground, without phone, electricity, running water, heating or cooling, any of the things that you need. But we were cold or hungry sometimes. We wore hand-me-downs. But the point was that people were often kind, and we never lost hope. And one of my feelings was, I have to pay this forward. I also come from 3 generations of people who wanted to care for kids. My grandfather took in 5 orphans, brought them up. They became part of the family. He also was very generous with his donations to many projects as things were going on. My father and mother had a children's home and school, and I began to work with the little orphans when I was only 9 years old. You change them, bathe them, feed them, all the things they needed. And I was really happy that one of them came to see me with his wife in Wisconsin a few years ago. And I was just very excited about that, to see that he'd had a successful life and we were part of the cause for it. I was a nanny for a professor while I was in grad school. And I was so impressed because this little 3-year-old would come to me and he'd talk to me about Maseratis and Lamborghinis and Ferraris and things that just made me back up and look at him. They had stacks of books about as high as I was, and every night I'd read them something. Then I'd go home to visit my mother during the holidays, and she took me to see one of their church members. This mother and father and twin boys lived in a house no larger than the professor's living room. In it, I could see no books at all. No reading material, nothing. And I just felt These are bright little boys. This is not fair. Somebody's got to level this playing field. And that's been something that I've had on my mind ever since. As I said, I want to pay it forward, and I've worked with a lot of these organizations. I either donate to them or volunteer for them. Rosie's House, Boys Ranch, Youth at Risk, many of them. The little girl right over there is my mentee. I think I learned as much from my mentees as they learned from me, but I did, in a way, help them get a better life. The major thing that I have done for scholarships has been a teen feast. That's a week-long program with CEO Space International. That's a business mentoring and educational institution. Kids go for a week and they learn networking and brainstorming, and they learn how to think like an entrepreneur. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful program for them. And they leave with new ideas and important contacts, a lifetime membership. And that's one thing I like, because you have to be a member of that organization to be able to get kids there. So I was able to do that some other organizations could not do. The thing that they left with, most importantly, was hope. The ones you saw there were one of my first group of them. This girl is Savona from that group. She had a beautiful voice, and she invited me to her concerts after I got back at her high school. And you see her there being, she had several solo leads in the concerts. And she stayed in touch with me, and she invited me to a shower, and now she has a child that's a lovely child that she likes very much, and I keep encouraging her to try to use her voice, because it is so beautiful. And she does still sing in the choir, and I've been able to give her some connections with contacts with women who are performers, singing performers, and I'm glad that that happens. This is the second group, and I'm happy that they're such a wonderfully diverse group of students. You see 2 African Americans, and then we had girls of Polish, Asian, Indian, and Hispanic descent. The woman helped me set up the organization in the first place, and she gets very much involved in nonprofits. She was very attentive to the kids when they were there and gave them ideas for things to make happen in their lives, what they wanted to happen. How much time do I have left? How much time?
You have 7 more minutes.
Okay, no, I need the 7 minutes. All right. You know, in some countries, they consider that age and wisdom are equated. So in my last birthday, I got a whole lot of cards praising me for my wisdom. So what I'd like to do is share with you some things that I've learned in my long life. I don't want you to raise your hands for this, but how many of you live lives that you totally love? Well, some of you are willing, but I'm not asking you to do that, because it might be embarrassing for the ones that don't. But what I'm trying to do is give you some pearls of wisdom about how to reach your own summit and live the most productive and enjoyable life possible. So, first of all, you want to take care of your health. We had a lecture on that earlier, but you want to be certain that you have good food, fresh food, that you get plenty of exercise, that you have stress relievers, that you yourself can relax and get enough sleep, which some of us have a very great problem doing. But I just think if you choose things you like to do, it's easier to make them a habit. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to do is make helping a part of your life. I've said you can go to my website, creatingexcitingfutures.org, to learn how to volunteer. There are other chances to volunteer. And of course, there are people like my sister who just looks around and is aware of people's needs and help them. I've seen her help somebody onto the bus with a lot of packages, or hold a door for someone who's just laden down. Just little things. Somebody needs help up a steep incline with a wheelchair, she'll do that. And that's something that all of us could do. And I'd like to saying from Mandy Hale, to make a difference in someone's life, you don't have to be brilliant, beautiful, or perfect. You just have to care. Another point is it's very important to love and forgive yourself. If you slack off one day and you don't follow your plan, you can remember tomorrow's another day and each one is a fresh start. Just don't give up, just find a way to settle your errors and go on from there. And I think, again, the Bible makes the point, which I think has a lot of wisdom, that if you should love your neighbors yourself, but if you don't love yourself, how can you love anyone else? It just can't be done. So I'm saying to you, lighten up, love yourself and love the world. And the final thing, what you really want in life, go after it. Don't let anything stop you. There may be times that you have to adjust or postpone. Our previous speaker talked about pivoting, but I think you should consider that just a detour and just go on and do what you really want to do. Now, it's fitting that I've come out with I'm out in a new book called Women Who Push the Limits Present 50 Lessons from Inspiring Women. And in that, my chapter is entitled Never Ever Quit. I will have those books in the lobby for you to see if you care to afterward. Very 50 inspiring stories. But anyway, I think it's very fitting because one of my main characteristics is persistence. Let's get the last slide. I think if you love your life, you'll make things happier for yourself and everyone around you. So I'm just going very quickly summarizing. Keep yourself fit and healthy. Whatever you do, do it as well as you can. To get deeply involved in a cause greater than yourself. Love yourself, forgive yourself, then move on. And when you've found your focus, never, ever quit, but pivot when necessary. This is an organization where you can find interest and a chance to volunteer if you care to, a chance to sponsor kids. So Auntie Mame said, life is a banquet. Go out and enjoy it and spread the enjoyment to others. I'm Anne Lorimor. I'm 91 years young and I'm not done yet.